Hey everybody, today we're going to have a look at my new native tank, and I've been tinkering with it a little bit, and I've added a little bit of plants to it, and I've changed the lighting around a little bit. And this is about the 5th time I've tried to shoot this video. I keep getting off on these tangents. I keep talking about the lights and the plants, and that's kind of why I want to shoot this video. Is I want to talk about the tank itself before we move on and I do anything else. So put the plants and the lighting off to the side for a moment, and I just want to talk about the tank and why I've set it up the way I've set it up and what I'm going for. A lot of people have been asking me what I'm going to stock it with, have been asking me whether or not I'm going to plant it, so on and so forth. So I want to discuss all of that, and again, we will get to the plants that I've put in there. I'm not necessarily married to them yet. I'm just putting them in there just to get a feel for what they look like, and so on and so forth. This tank, as I keep saying, has a long way to go yet. So what I was going for when I set this tank up was not a native biotope tank. I do appreciate those. I look at them a lot. I think they're beautiful, but that's just not me, and it's not my personality, and it's certainly not my tank personality. What I was going for in this tank is more or less a representation, not necessarily an exact copy, but a representation of what my outdoors experience is like. So as beautiful as those little native biotope tanks are, with all those fiddly little specimens that I've never even heard of before, honestly, until I really started doing some research into this tank, as beautiful as those tanks are, those don't really represent my experience with the outdoors. I go fishing, and I go crayfishing and looking for bait and just, messing around in the stream and kicking over rocks to see what's there. And that's kind of about it. I do a lot of fishing, I do a lot of kayaking. I'm not a biologist, I'm an outdoorsman. So this tank doesn't really represent all of the little fiddly biology of Maryland and all of our ecology that is admittedly a lot more diverse than I realized. I had no idea we had so many different species of native fish here in this, not necessarily this state, but in this area, in this region, what I could put in this tank and comfortably still call a native tank, for this part of the world. Again, that's not really what I was going for. What I initially was thinking, I was going to do maybe a couple of nice sunfish and a small bass. Keep the bass as long as I could until it outgrew the tank, and then, do something different, maybe put a perch in there, just something like that. These are the fish I have experience with. I go fishing for bass all the time. I catch the occasional perch. I catch sunfish all the time, of course. They're big fish, they're beautiful fish, they're attention-getting, and it would just make for a little slice of my outdoors here in my basement, which would be especially nice over the winter. I really hate struggling through the cold winters, so having a little bit of my outdoors experience is awesome. So when I set it up, I wasn't going for anything exact. This, we're not looking at the exact representation of some particular place I like to go or anything, like that. I'm not trying to copy anything. All I really went for with this tank was simply what inspires me when I'm out and I'm hiking or I'm out fishing or kayaking. This is just sort of what the outdoors around here look like. It's the same sort of rocks that come from around here. In fact, of course, I've collected all these rocks locally myself anyway. The woodwork as well is something that you would see if you were paddling along or walking along a stream and you looked into a pool. You'd see branches and, fallen trees, and you'd see minnows and fish swimming around them, maybe some sunfish swimming around in and out of the branches. And that's pretty much the effect I've got with the tank. What I really want to go for, in my mind, what I see is looking up the shoreline of a lake. If you were in the water and the shore was off to your right and the deeper water was off to your left, I can't obviously have the tank slant downwards and get deeper and deeper, but I can position the rocks and the branches to sort of fool the eye and give the appearance of sloping down and deeper off to the left. The changes I made to the lighting today, what I did specifically was I reduced the lighting to the right. I took the tubes off of the right altogether and I replaced it with an LED. And I will do a video in my lighting playlist, and I'll explain what I'm talking about with the LED and why it gives you the sort of light that it gives you. But LEDs give you a very different sort of light than a tube or an incandescent or any other kind of light, really. LEDs are unique, and that's what gives you that twinkly sparkle in the water. Just to put it shortly, the way the light is produced, the wavelengths are coming out almost parallel to each other. And I'm not exactly sure why it gives you that sparkly effect when they come out parallel like that, but it does. It gives you that twinkle and sparkle that you simply can't get with any other type of lighting. And again, I'll go into that a little more detail and explain how LEDs work and why they produce light the way they do and all that kind of stuff. It's fascinating, actually. But the appearance it gives and the effect it gives is twinkly sunlight, dapple sunlight shining down through the leaves of trees or maybe sparkling through the ripply water. And the effect it gives, at least again in my mind, and this is my tank, so that's the only mind that really counts, is you've got your shoreline off to your right. You've got fallen branches, and in fact that's actually a small tree that goes all the way to the right of the tank, and that's the root mass at the far right. Obviously I couldn't put a whole entire fallen tree in there like I would see out of the reservoir. You know, I often see the fallen trees. But in this case, it still gives me that fact, that gives me that feeling. We've got the rocks that come almost all the way up to the surface, and then with the twinkly light and the shadowiness, that gives the effect of overhanging branches that are growing off of the shore. We always have bushes and trees and stuff that have branches that hang out over the water. And then as you move away from the shoreline off to the left, you get out into the deeper water where it's just wide open and you've just got the broad open sunlight and you've got a much more brightly lit tank off to the left. So that's sort of the feel I'm going for. To me, I think it does a pretty good job. I'm not there yet, but I'm working on it. I'm sort of dialing it in. The plants are going to be, I don't know. Again, I'm not going for a biotope tank, so I can go outside the realm of native plants. It's not going to kill me. I know the Water Sprite's not native to Maryland, and I don't think Java Fern's native around here either. I will probably try to get some Val. I know there's an Americana Val out there. So I'll see about doing something like that. But if I don't like, I'm not sure I'm digging the way that's going to look though. When I'm out, I only see two kinds of plants typically where I go in my reservoir. One looks like a nacris, and it probably is. I've brought it home. I've tried to grow it before, and it never did well. It always died. And then the other one is a very lacy looking plant that looks very much like Cobamba, which again, it may be, I don't know. Again, I'm not a botanist, I'm not a biologist or anything else. So I've tried that. I've brought that home from the reservoir and it does not do well. It just sort of fades away and dies in my tank. Not really sure why, don't really know what's going on with that. We do have water lily around here. I could probably do something with that, even if it wasn't a true biotope. Again, maybe put a red tiger lotus in there. That would look really nice, even though it wouldn't be true native. And it would give me a nice effect. It would give me some shading and so on and so forth. So again, I've got a lot of things to think about and a lot of choices to go with. So I do want to get back to talking about the actual scaping and why I scaped it the way I did, but we're going to take a little break for a moment and put a dissolved or a softened cube of Tubifex worms in there. So it's going to be a veritable snowstorm of food, and the fish are going to go bonkers. Excuse me. So as I keep saying, I'm not trying to copy anything specific. When you actually look at Mother Nature, it's often not as aesthetically pleasing as you might like it to be. I also have to take into consideration that while I don't have to maintain the reservoir, I do have to maintain this tank. I need to keep it clean. I need water to flow through it in certain ways. I need the animals to be able to move through it in certain ways. I myself would like to be able to see the animals even though they feel sheltered. I'd still like to be able to look in through the cracks and crevices, you know, so I don't want them completely hidden. So there's a lot that goes into the compromise between the reality of this is my fish tank and not an actual slice of the lake, and recapitulating a slice of the lake. And again, I really feel like I'm doing a good job in my mind of what I sort of envisioned when I thought about putting this tank together. I was not envisioning these minnows at all. I like them though. I like the way they move. I'm not going to be able to keep that many in the tank when I start stocking other fish in there. As I've said before, but it gives me something to look at and it gives me something to think about. And as you can see, you know, and as I was saying, I've been down here sort of tinkering today. I put that floating water sprite in there. I want to see if it makes the minnows feel any more comfortable. They're actually coming out a lot more. You see the way they're swimming around now. They'll do that during the day when there's no food in the tank necessarily. They'll just come out and cruise the tank looking for food. They don't just huddle down near the bottom anymore. So again, we've got a long way to go, and before I get ahead of myself with the plants and everything, I really did want to just sort of lay out the thought behind what I'm doing. Now, as far as the stocking goes, I'm still just, I don't really know what I want to do yet. Again, I've got till spring probably at this rate before I really seriously have to consider doing anything. And I have to you know, balance the practical with what I'd like to do. I'd love to have a bass in there, and I could keep it for a while until it was too big, you know, maybe a year or something, and when it outgrew the tank, I could do something, you know, different after that. But the bass is going to be a strictly predatory fish, so the having any kind of minnows or anything like that's out of the question, and I'd always have to find live food to feed it. If I have sunfish in there, they're beautiful, and there really are some stunning sunfish I could put in there, and those can be trained to eat flake food or pellets or anything you throw in there in about 15 seconds. They're not picky. So I would be able to do that easily enough, and that's probably the direction I'm leaning in, is sunfish. But even with sunfish, it's going to be tricky what else I can have in the tank. Sunfish are very aggressive and very territorial. Very aggressive and territorial. So it's likely that even if I only had 4 or 5 minnows that were able to huddle all the way at the other end of the tank, in time they would probably get chased down and beaten to death by sunfish. So I have a lot to sort of balance. I'd love to have a lot of cool small stuff in the tank, but that's not really how I've got the tank set up. I didn't really build it around this idea of having all these cool little darters and stuff hiding on the bottom of the tank and then no larger fish swimming throughout the top. So I've still got plenty of time to think about it. It's probably going to wind up being something with some sunfish in it. It probably is going to be planted to some degree. I like the way that Java looks in there so far. I could probably do some Val. I'm going to have a fair amount of current. I have ordered another power head. We are going to add another power head to this tank. It was supposed to be here Friday, but it did not show up over the weekend. It's now Monday, and it's still not here, so we'll have to wait and see what happens with the power head and when we can install that. But we'll do another video, and we'll talk about circulation and water flow and air, you know, gas exchange at the surface and surface agitation and so on and so forth. We can revisit that whole topic with this tank, because this, again, is going to be a different, unique tank, and every tank has its own needs based on what you're going to put in it, what your, you know, stocking load's going to be, what the animals themselves are, so on and so forth. So we'll do another video on that as well. So make sure you subscribe. I got a lot of stuff coming up. Again, it's all jumbling up in my head. I hope some of that made some kind of coherent sense. I feel like I got 15 videos backed up in my head, and I'm trying to keep them all from trying to get out at once. So if you're subscribed, you won't miss whatever's coming up next. Hopefully it'll be something good. So thanks for watching this one. Look forward to the next one, and I will see you real soon.